The Women's Land Army was an organisation first established in the First World War, mainly to offset the loss of agricultural labourers due to conscription. Despite being disbanded following the end of the war, the Women's Land Army would be re-established in 1939. With the British government anticipating the need for conscription and the potential food shortages that would come with it, the Women's Land Army was set up to offset the loss. Initially a volunteer group, service in the Women's Land Army would become mandatory for rural women in 1941 during the height of the Battle of Britain. The Land Girls or Land Lassies of the Women's Land Army began recruitment before the war. With tensions rising in Europe, the British Empire enacted its first ever peacetime conscription. The Women's Land Army was similarly re-established in peacetime, and it allowed for the relatively inexperienced women of the Women's Land Army to gain peacetime experience in farming. Their training was grueling and on the job. Land girls were often thrown straight into the work and directed by a few essential workers spared for conscription or factory work. They trained the land girls in both the physical aspects of farming, such as tending to cattle, and also the usage of heavy machinery such as tractors and excavators. Land girls were given a basic and inexpensive uniform, or none at all, depending upon their location. Many of the land girls simply wore whatever was most convenient for them, or whatever the employing farmers could provide. For accommodation, it also varied. Some would live on the farms or in nearby hostels, or if they were within the local area, would simply make a daily commute. For their trouble, they were paid between 40 to 30 shillings per week, depending upon their lodgings. The work performed varied depending upon their location, and the type of farms the land girls were employed on. Dairy farms, produce farms, fodder farms, and kitchen farms all had different routines. The WLA also operated several special branches, such as rat catchers and land reclamation, the process of transforming land unsuitable for farming into prime agricultural land. The Timber Corps of 1942 was also a branch of the WLA and produced timber products for the war effort. There were also some irregular tasks and unofficial tasks provided to the WLA, again depending upon their location. Land girls, mainly located around Luftwaffe targets, such as docks and aerodromes, were often dispatched on morning patrols to search for debris and particularly parachutes. The silk parachutes could be broken down and remade into durable clothes for their local communities, or resold to the RAF for their use in the Battle of Britain. Despite peacetime demobilisation following the end of the war, British Imperial troops still maintained garrisons in many positions across the world, mainly Germany, Libya, the Italian East African territories, Japan, and the Dutch East Indies. There were also British and Imperial troops fighting in the ongoing Greek Civil War. So with so many troops still deployed and farmers still needed in the fields, the WLA would continue work until 1950 when it was disbanded, just 4 years before the end of rationing in Britain. Despite their important contributions to the war effort, the WLA wasn't fully recognised for its service until 2000. In 2000, they were allowed to march in Remembrance Day parades, and were awarded badges of recognition in 2007. Some also received letters of recognition from Prime Minister Gordon Brown. In 2014, a war memorial was built to honour their contribution to the war. Veterans of the Women's Land Army carried that pride for the rest of their lives, and into death. Many land girls were buried with sheafs of wheat, the symbol of the Women's Land Army, and many marked their graves with that same symbol, graves which can be found across the country to this day.